In this video, we're going to talk about how to make a campaign video. It is the most effective tool you will ever have to communicate with voters. I'm going to show you how to make a good one. What I'm going to say may surprise you, so stay tuned. Here's a secret. Great footage will not save a bad script. A great script will survive bad footage. The first job in making a great campaign video is to write the script. That happens before you do anything else, because otherwise you are wasting your time. In this video, we're going to talk about the elements and things and sections that go into that video script and the questions that video script has to answer for the voters who view it. When you're doing the video, go have a seat in the chair of the person who may watch it, the voter. What's a voter want to know about you? They want to know what makes you qualified, what you've done in your private or professional life that gives you the right to ask for the power to make decisions on their behalf. They want to know something about your moral code. They need to know that your values and what you consider right and wrong and good and evil is in sync with their notion of what is right and wrong and good and evil. Tell them the people you care about, the veterans, kids who are hungry, senior citizens that don't get enough to eat or can't pay their prescription medication. That's an example of values. They want to know what you're going to do for them. What problem are you going to solve? What wrong will you right? What injustice will you correct? What are you going to do that will elevate their standard of living the way they measure it? They want to know what story you can tell. They'd like to hear the story. What happened in your life that now makes you passionate about asking for the power to fix a problem? How do they know that they can trust you to make correct decisions when they're not looking? Finally, they're going to want to know, what makes you better than your opponent? Make this decision easy for me. Just give it to me in black and white so I can make this decision and go on with my life. That's what voters want to know. And the secret of a video is to blend components of everything I just mentioned into a 2 and 2.5 minute script, all of about 300 words. That's about the limit on a good political video for a candidate. Now, personally, I like starting videos with a story that explains why a client of mine is running for office. Something that says beyond a doubt that they're running for office for the right reasons. You don't have to do it that way. The point of constructing a script that will be your campaign video, this is like a cake. Some ingredients are small, some are large, but if you fail to put these 5 ingredients in your cake, it will not bake properly. All right, so I talked about the 5 components. Now, you could write a whole video about each one of those things I just said, right? Yeah, she put your whole resume on there and talked about, but it would come at the expense of talking with the others. So, how do you mix and match? And I mentioned that I like starting with stories. So, tell a story, a candidate story of something that happened in their life. And I'm going to give you a good example here. Once I was talking to a candidate running for the Senate. He happened to be Asian. And I said, what's the first thing you remember in life? Something that happened to you at a point in your life when you can't remember anything that happened before that. And he said, well, that's easy. It was cold water running over my butt. And I said, what was the occasion? He says, I was swimming across the Mekong River. And I said, why at 2 years old were you swimming across the Mekong River? He said, my father was leading across the Mekong River, and I was one of 7 members of our family tied together with this rope trying to get across in the dark of night and the water was really cold. I said, can you give me a little bit more context about why this happened? And he says, yes, my father was a farmer in Laos and he had sided with the Americans during the Vietnam War. And when the communists took control of the country, my father ended up on a hit list, and he knew that if he didn't get out of the country, he was going to get killed, and we would probably get killed with him. So one night we all went through the woods of Thailand. It took 3 days, or through Laos. He says it took 3 days to get to the Mekong River. And I remember my dad talking about the lights of freedom in Thailand. So we got across the river and we went into a refugee camp with 70 other people. And I said, and then? He said, well, 7 years later, somebody came to see my dad and said, you've been offered a chance to live in the United States. Do you want to move there with your family? And of course he said yes. And I said, yes. And he says, this is what I want to tell you, Jay. Everything that I have, every breath I take, every bit of freedom I enjoy, every dime I have in my bank account, I owe to the United States of America. And I'm going to run for this job because we have a democracy that's worth preserving. And when he said that, I thought, man, I've got the story. And that's exactly the way we started the video. And I tell you, no one had any doubt about his patriotism or his motivation for running. We started with that story and I could tell, because we can measure as a video runs how long people watch the video and whether they leave after the 25 or 50-second mark. They stuck with him the entire video because the story hooked them. And he went on to talk about what he had done in his life, the restaurant he owned, the small business, showed pictures of his family, how he had served his community, what he stood for, and what he was fighting for, the policy reasons that he wanted to be a U.S. Senator. He came up short because he was short of money. But I'll tell you, this is what he accomplished in running. He created a group of people who just absolutely loved what he had to say. He came up short in a first statewide race he'd ever run, but he's also at the top of the list for other offices that are going to become available in the near future, where party leaders and others now know who he is and are ready to knock on his door and say, okay, we want you to run here because we loved the way you ran the campaign for the U.S. Senate. That's what a video did for a candidate. Now, there are other examples of great videos, but here's the point. In the 300 words or so that you have to work with, you move these sections around so that you've got the story in your video that draws the viewer in. You've got just enough about your background and your private life and your professional qualifications that lets voters know that you got your feet on the ground and that you're not a clown or a kook. You talk about the problems you're going to solve and why you're moved to fix them. In some cases, how you're going to do it. And you wrap the video with what I call your unique selling proposition. The things that you can say that no one else can, the things you are going to do that no one else will do, so that you leave them without that clear choice. Personally, that is the way I organize campaign videos. And I know they work because I've done dozens of them. They take a long time to write, but I spend far more time writing the script for candidates than we do shooting the footage, because there is an art to the way this is done and a science. If you follow this formula, you too can have a great video. Once you've written the script, storyboard the thing, decide what scenes you're going to show with what words, hire a crew to go out with you, shoot your footage. The one other thing that I'm going to mention shooting this video is when you talk and your voice needs to be part of this, for God's sake, say it like you mean it. If it sounds like you're reading the script, you're going to bore your audience. They need to know that you're committed. So say it like you really mean it. Each week I set aside a little time to talk to candidates who are running for office or thinking about running for office someday. If you would like to book some time with me, click the link below, complete the paperwork, send it to me, and I'll get a hold of you and we'll set up a time to talk.